Hey guys, all right, so another piece of the recipe, let's cover that today. So, we've talked about so many pieces of the recipe and the funnel and all that kind of stuff, and the business really is this simple. You know what I mean? Like, we tend to overcomplicate it. We tend to, get ourselves so worried about things that are out of our control, that we allow the things that we can't do stop us from doing the things that we can do. Okay, and so one piece of the recipe is checking in, motivating. People always say, how do you motivate your challengers? That's why I named it what I named it. But really, we're going to get this to it in a second, but this really comes down to checking in on them, okay? And so this is something, just if we're looking at things from, when did I fit this stuff in? So I did all the phase 1 stuff in the morning, okay? So, about from 5:30 to 6, I did all the phase 1 stuff that I have taught you, like the 2 finds, the 2 connects, the 2 invites, the 2 follow-ups. Those are all, all my finds. You know what I mean? If I'm presenting something to someone, that's all phase 1 when you're getting a presentation in front of someone, whether it be what you have to offer them or their different options to work with you or what it means to be a part of your team or all those kind of things. That's all in phase 1. Okay, so and I was taught this very early on by numerous successful people, not only in this business, but in other past successful people in network marketing. And so success leaves clues. And so I pushed the I believe button on that. And from 5 to 6, I made sure that I always did phase 1, which moves your business forward. As soon as the biggest mistake coaches make is phase 1 sometimes can be the not so fun things for some reason, which is sad to me because that just means our frame of mind is off, our belief system is off a little bit, because when you think of finding new people, when you really think about the possibility that as you gain trust with this person, as they realize that you can help them and that you do love them, the change that could happen in their life and the generational ripple effect, when I think of it from that perspective, that excites me. Finding new people to be the light in their life, or to be their encouragement that they don't have, finding 2 new people, that excites me. Connecting with people, hearing their stories, figuring out, is there any tool that I have in my toolbox that can serve them, and then inviting them, following up with people, which is a continual process of building the relationship, excites me. And I think that when we start to shift our mindset, we don't go for the phase 2 things right off the bat. But you have to admit, most of us, at some point in time, maybe you're still like this, but checking into your challenge groups, that's fun, you know what I mean? Checking in with your challengers, that's easier, you know what I mean? They already took your hand, checking in with your coaches, doing your personal development or checking in with the team page, or, you know what I mean? That tends to be the easier stuff for us to do. But I always got phase 1 done from 5:30 to 6 o'clock in the morning when Chad, when we had a 10-month-old, 4-year-old, and Chad was deployed, because I knew if everything else, fell apart, the kids got the flu, the refrigerator broke, the washer broke, anything could go wrong, you know what I mean? And as a single mom, and I knew I moved my business in a positive direction, right? And so I always did that in the morning. And then at lunchtime, which we all have to take lunch, okay? So even, stay-at-home moms take lunch. You have to take control over your schedule like that, even if you work full-time. I know there's extenuating circumstances that nurse or firefighters and all that kind of stuff. But in all honesty, we can step away for 30 minutes and eat our lunch, and this is when I checked into with my challengers. And that's what I want to talk to you guys today about, is that piece of the recipe, right? And so I got my recipe card. I don't know if you guys can see right here. 2 finds, 2 connects, 2 follow-up, 2 invites, 2 follow-ups, challenger check-ins, coach check-ins, and then on the other side, I got my own personal journey with working out, my nutrition, my personal development. And that rounds out the business in all seriousness. We have social media that we'll talk about and stuff. and such, but really that rounds out the business. And so today I wanted to talk to you about motivating your challengers, connecting with your challengers, checking in with your challengers, whatever you want to call it. I always did mine at lunchtime. I made my shake while my kids were eating, and so I could sit down with them, drink my shake, and they would eat their food, and then I'd get them down for quiet time. And, I gave myself like 20 minutes or so, 20-30. I drank the rest of my shake and I checked in with my challengers. But let me build out some frame, like a foundation for you, and kind of build this up for you. You have to understand there is something very important about being disciplined as a business owner, okay? We can't forget that we are business owners. We own businesses, and if you treat it like a business, it will pay you back in time, because everything takes time, like a business, okay? And so if you treat it like a hobby, which is fine if that's where you're at, don't get frustrated when it pays you more like a hobby, which is totally fine. That's the beauty of this business. It can be anything you want it to be. It can be anything you want it to be. You just have to manage your expectations. But this recipe, the way I ran it, with very very disciplined, it kept me in the game for 7 years. You know what I mean? And I like it. Do you know what I mean? I don't hate it. I hear some people they're burnt out. They've been whacking at the tree for too long, or the joy has been sucked out. And I truly believe it's because of the discipline of staying focused, narrowing your focus during the time. I know women especially, we can be crazy multitaskers, but there's a lot of research out there that isn't even efficient. And it actually leads to anxiety, depression, and being overwhelmed. Okay? And so that ability to from 5:30 to 6 to sit down, and that's all I did. I wasn't scrolling Facebook. I wasn't, trying to listen to personal development at the same time. I wasn't taking texts from people. I wasn't answering my messages. The notifications weren't popping up, and I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta see what they said. It was very, and I talk about this with you guys, it's very structured, and the same thing happens at lunchtime for me back then, okay? And so I'd take these 20 or 30 minutes or so, and I would focus on my challengers. But again, let me set the framework. Listen, you have to understand, and the reason I label this, how do you motivate your coaches, is you have to understand you're not the motivation for your coaches. You know what I mean? The true motivation comes from within. Okay, so motivation, when we get it from someone else, it can be fleeting, boom, I'm hyped up. How many of you guys have ever gone to an event, or you've been on a call, or you've listened to someone talk, E.T. or Gary V, or do you know what I mean, these different people, Shalene or something, yeah, I'm hyped up, and you're so excited, and then before you know it, something happens, and boom, the motivation's gone, right? So we can't, you have to understand this, You're not the source for your coaches. You are the support piece. You're the support piece, okay? And see, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves that someone else's success sits on our shoulders, and it's just not true. You guys, it's just not true, and it's unfortunate that in this day and age, and especially in this business, we take a lot of credit for other people's success, and it's designed that way, right? When you hit diamond, it's because, well, maybe you manufactured it yourself with emeralds or whatever, but generally, if you didn't, someone else hit diamond or emerald. You know what I mean? When you hit a qualifying status, 1-star qualifying, it's because you supported them, but ultimately that person that hit diamond had to show up every single day. There was an internal motivation that had to come about them, right? And a why that made them want to show up and reach out and to be coachable and to hear the no's and to learn how to form people and listen to their need, and all of that learning that happened for that person to build a diamond business, and then what do we have being flashed on Facebook? 1-star qualifying. We're not even, I talked about this, you're not even, we celebrated the diamond for a second, whoop, brought in the qualifying person, right? We're yes, I'm qualifying, right? And take credit for someone else's success. And I'm just being completely honest right now. I think that is a huge something that you can't, I learned a long time ago, you can't take credit for someone's success and not take credit for their failure. Do you know what I mean? Like the two, like the way the brain works, you can't compute. So if you take credit for their success, they will fail. Because you have to fail. It's like when our children fall down, when they're learning to, that's how they strengthen. Every single person in business, in marriage, in a brick and mortar, in school, like our kids, will fail at some point in time. They have to. That's part of developing the perseverance muscle that is required for long-term success, right? So our kids have to fail. Right? And if we take, like, if we, you notice parents these days, like I was just talking to a friend of mine. I was at her house this morning about how much parents these days are like puffing out their chest when their kids are doing well in sports. It's almost like they're like directly connected to it. And even as kids start to, like, maybe one child is doing better, like what they're noticing in our society is the parents will make this child train more, train harder. Like it's almost like the parents behind it because they're taking credit. This is a very real, if you read, if you research, it's a very real issue in our society, and we see it in our business, right? We see that we start to shoulder this pressure of and we attach our identity and value to somebody else, right? And so when a challenger isn't showing up, we start to internalize that it's something wrong with us. And we have to build that root out. We have to understand that whether our kids thrive in school or struggle in school, whether our kids thrive in sports or struggle in sports, whether our team thrives or struggles, whether our challengers just get it or they struggle, that does not define us as a human being, right? So we are the support piece. I fully believe that. I believe that a lot of people these days are missing a cheerleader, so to speak, an encourager, someone to speak life over top of them, right? So when we do the example of the plants, right? Like the flowers on this side that you scream at, you speak death over, like you suck, you're ugly, you don't grow fast enough. Those plants, the studies, the experiments that have been done, those plants die. Right? And then you got these other plants, same food system, same soil, same everything, same sunlight, all that. You speak life over them. Wow, you're doing so good. You're growing. You're gorgeous. Man, your colors are so vibrant. You talk to them. They thrive, right? But notice that the deciding factor wasn't someone going in there and digging in and being like, are your roots taking root? Like, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't anything different. It wasn't like these plants got better food, or we stuck them in better light, or they had someone that had a more pleasant voice speaking life over them, or a more fit person speaking life over them, or a certain color of an individual speaking life over or death over them, or a woman versus a male, or a 45-year-old versus a 24. It didn't have anything to do with that. Right? It had all to do with life and death is in the power of the tongue. So it didn't have anything to do with all of those things that we get in our head, that we start to think that something's wrong with us. I'm not fit for this. My challengers aren't succeeding. We are the support piece. They still have to show up. Are you guys following me? So we have to understand this, because we are going to have challengers that don't show up. We're going to have challengers that quit. We're going to have challengers that don't get the results. We're going to have challengers that get results and then fall backwards, and then get results and fall backwards and stay stuck and fall off the wagon and then get back on. And if we're continually attaching our identity, our value as an encourager, as a coach, as a business owner to whether they are succeeding, it's going to be one hell of a roller coaster, and we're probably going to quit because we're going to get nauseous on this roller coaster. You guys see what I'm saying? The only difference between our only job is to speak life, to show up, to give them hope, right? Remember, people ask themselves 3 things. Does she love me? Can she help me? And can I trust her? Okay, so these are when we're doing self-evaluation, which is that's the only piece that we can do, is like, I can only control what I can control. right? Like it's the same for, the doctor that I just started visiting. If I don't walk through his doors, if I don't do the exercises with my head that he has me doing, if I don't follow his instruction, he told me to go home. When you go home, you can go work out, but don't do any kettle throws because of your neck. If I come home and say, screw that, I'm going to do the kettle, the upright row and all these things he told me not to do. It's not that he's a bad doctor. It's that I didn't follow the recipe, right? His ability to motivate me is not in question. It just means I wasn't ready. His only job is to continue to speak truth wrapped up in love over top of me and to still be here leading by example with positivity and love and heart and integrity. Do you guys see what I'm saying? That's his only job. Right? And that's your only, so we have to have an understanding of this before we even step into this piece that happens at lunch, because I think a lot of people get caught up and they get caught up with their challengers because they fear that there's something wrong with them as a coach because their challengers aren't showing up. Or they're not doing what they're, and they get really, really frustrated. So we have to get this under control, right? You have to understand that we are belief makers. We are professional hope givers, right? We speak life. That is what is missing. We live in the information age. Like it's not that information is missing. I mean, if it was just an information thing, we would all be rich and wealthy because you can look up how to invest. You can look up. We know what to do with our money. We know that when we're living in the red, that we then shouldn't be stopping for a cup of coffee, like, do you know what I mean, that we can't really afford, or buying the shirt that we can't afford, or going on the vacation on another credit card. We know these things. There's enough information out there, and we know the things that we know that a Twinkie is not going to lead us to feeling comfortable in our skin. We know that a half a bottle of wine a couple nights a week is going to interfere with our goals. We know that lack of sleep messes with our body and really can keep us cortisol can shoot into our stomach and cause belly fat. All this stuff is on Google. So it's not for lack of information. It's for lack of support and encouragement in most people's lives. And it's starting with our young kids these days, right? Lots of competition, lots of judgment, lots of trying to tear people down. We're the ones that when people are getting torn down, we're reaching our hand down saying, take my hand. But if you don't show up, so here's the first piece of being a belief maker, you have to be there to say, take my hand, and to pull. You have to show up, right? You have to set the example. You have to show up in your challenge group. So that's the first thing that I did every day at lunch, right? I did my workout from 6 to 7. Back then, they were hour workouts. And then at lunchtime, after I got the kids down for quiet time, Riley slept, Griffin had to either sleep or have quiet time, I checked in with my own journey. I checked into my challenge groups. I posted a picture after I worked out. I talked about my wins. I talked about my struggles. I talked about where I was at. I talked about where I was frustrated. I just was real. You know what I mean? And so that was me showing up, me setting the example. If we don't show up, you can't reach down when the person's struggling, right? So like the doctor that I'm going to, if when I'm ready, I go to walk through the doors at the usual time that they're open and they're locked, and there's chains on it, there's boards up. No one can help me in there when I finally show up ready to help, ready to change, right? That's kind of like us, like with our business. So there's things that you can do to self-evaluate. Are you showing up? And I didn't say showing up perfect. No one is expecting you to have a six-pack. No one is expecting you to have everything together. No one is expecting you to be able to do every single move exactly. We just need you to show up. They need you to show up, because when you show up, you're showing them that it is worth their while, that you believe in it. When my doctor shows up with enthusiasm and hope in his eyes, he is showing me that he believes, and that belief is transferred to me. Does that make sense? So one, are you setting the example? These are some things you can self-evaluate. Are you setting the example? So that's the first thing I did, is I made sure every day that I set the example, that I told him what I was doing. I made sure that I shared my recipe, what I had for lunch, my Shakeology recipe, what I ate for dinner, my meal planning on Sundays. I just set the example. I told him when I struggled. I told him when I missed a Sunday. I told him when I missed a workout. I told him. Do you see what I'm saying? I told him when I was struggling missing Chad. I told him all of it. and I just showed up. Okay, 2, small wins. Being a belief maker, we have to help people have small wins, right? Again, it's the support piece. It's helping them with, you have to show up. Again, the negative voice that is playing through people's mind. Like, remember the plant I was talking about that gets death spoken over top of them? 99% of the time, we are the actual people speaking death over top of ourselves. Your challengers, right? They have that tape playing. Right? When you show up and you help to rewrite the tape with them, you help them to, instead of focusing on the negative, you ask them, what went well today? This is what went well for me. This is what I could work on. What went well for you today? What are your wins this week? What are your small victories? Get them focusing on what's going right. Does that make sense? So so a lot of people ask me, like, what kind of questions do you ask people? It comes from these type of things. What's going well? Right? What are 3 things that went well for you today, this week, this month, right? Like, I'm trying to get people to stop focusing on what's not going well, all the negative stuff, and focus on what is positive, right? The things that we're grateful for. Gratitude is huge, right? Getting people to focus on those kind of things. 3, so are you showing up and sharing your small wins, and are you getting your challengers to talk about those things, okay? And 3, becoming a belief maker is taking these people and getting them surrounded by other people that are moving in the same positive direction. Now, you have to create the environment, the safe environment, the encouraging environment, the loving environment, the place where they're like, she does love me, he does care for me, I can trust him, he or she can help me. Do you know what I mean? Like, you create that environment in your challenge group by whether you show up. Like, you know what I mean? If you don't show up, how can I trust you? If you don't show up, how could you possibly help me? How could you possibly love me? Like, if you don't show up in your marriage, your husband's or wife's gonna wonder, like, they're gonna be like, I don't know if she loves me. Seriously, if you don't show up, if you're never available, if you're never there, they start to question it. It's true, the same thing in a business, right? So we have to show up, okay? Create that environment for them. But wait, there's this other part. They have to show up. They have to do their part. So my doctor creates this amazing environment. There's verses on the walls. There's a TV, a positive Dr. Axe or something, or himself at a CrossFit gym talking on there. Very, very positive. The people at the front desk are amazing and welcoming, and they come and greet you. They even have this cute dog. I think it's a bulldog or something, a boxer actually, that he's so sweet. He greets you, he lets you pet him, and it's peaceful. They have, like essential oils it's just like, when you walk, they created the environment. I have to walk into it. They have to unlock the doors. They have to also show up, but I have to make the decision to walk through the doors. So do your challengers. You cannot make them do that. There is nothing that you can do. If you're doing these things, if you're like, okay, the self-evaluation is, am I showing up? Am I setting the example, the best of my ability? Am I showing up every single day, no matter what? Posting my wins, my struggles, the real, the raw, the good, the bad. I'm here. You know what I mean? Are you doing that? Are you helping them find their small wins and getting them to focus on the things that will encourage them? Are you speaking life over top of them in the group, right? That is so big. Yes, we need to help them make correction, but not by death over top of them. Not like, what the hell were you thinking eating that? Do you know what I mean? But coming in with how are you feeling when you ate that whole sleeve of cookies? Let's try to reverse engineer this, so that you can move in a positive direction. Because, girl, I've eaten a whole sleeve of Oreos before, or I used to, hide in the closet and eat Tostitos, so I get it. So let's try to figure out how you were feeling during that time. Do you see? Like, that's encouraging. You're showing up. You're helping them find solutions and small wins, but they have to show up and want the change. And that's the foundational piece, right? So a lot of us carry all this stress on top of us, thinking that we're the source. We're not the source. Our job is to prepare their hearts. That's all we can do. We are the messenger. And once we realize that our value as a human being is not based on whether our challengers show up or whether our coaches show up or any, we can't control those kind of things. The only thing we can control is ourselves. And that's all I've done for 7 years is, damn it, I'm going to control myself. I'm going to lead by example. I'm going to speak life over people. I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to give it time. And I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do even when no one is looking. Time plus consistency plus time plus character equals influence, and it all takes time, right? And if I do those things, I knew that people will know that I love them. People will know that I can help them, and people will know that they can trust me, right? And so that's the foundation of motivating our coaches, right? But ultimately, we're just the messenger. We're the one reaching our hand out. At the end of the day, they have to take our hand. Right? So at lunchtime, I showed up every single day without fail to reach out my hand. Every single day. Every single day I did that. Not always on the weekends because I do believe like we don't need to work all the time. But you reach out your hand. How do you reach out your hand? I checked in with my challenge groups. I posted my picture. I showed that I was doing. I showed what I was eating. I showed what I was drinking. I led by example with my food journal. You know what I mean? The good, the bad, the ugly, the slip-ups, the trips, the falls. I didn't fade. I didn't hide when I was tripping. I didn't go, because I'm going to lose trust. I'm going to lose trust. And when you go hide, now you lose accountability at the same time. And if we start hiding when we've tripped, guess what? We've just given permission with our influence, those people we've given them permission to hide. Right? It's like, people don't do as we say. They do what we do. Same with our kids, right? So we can tell our kids all we want, conflict resolution, be kind, ask for forgiveness. They see us telling off our spouse in front of them and reaming them and not having good conflict resolution. Guess what? That is what they're going to learn. The same with our challengers, right? And so every lunch I showed up, set example. And then I would shoot them a message like 2-3 times a week. Right? Like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What is a win that you have this week? What are on Thursdays, or Fridays, what are some obstacles you foresee this weekend that maybe we could navigate together or come up with a game plan to win? What would winning look like this weekend for you? Do you see what I'm saying? In a very natural way, because I know 1, set example, 2, help them have small wins, 3, get them surrounded. But they have to show up. And so that does not take a ton of time to check on our challengers, right? So a lot of questions that I get from people is, do I do it with my free challengers? I do not. It is free for a reason. Okay, so when I'm running a free group, I'm not doing a ton of checking in, right? I'm leading by example. I'm providing content. If we're doing the pumpkin push-up challenge, I'm doing push-ups, even though I didn't want to. You know what I mean? I did not want to do the push-ups this time. I already have my routine. I do 20 push-ups every single morning. So this whole thing I designed, I still did it. You know what I mean? And then I would go in there and look for them and I would encourage them. And if I noticed they weren't posting, then they would get a message like, hey girl, you doing okay? How are those push-ups going? But it wasn't all the time. Now when I do a clean week or something like that, they're usually getting a message from me daily. All right, girl, I saw your food journal last night. Let's make some few tweaks. I just think you need to increase your water just a little bit more and let's define a win tomorrow. What would be a win? Like, what would be winning for you tomorrow? Do you see what I'm saying? And so I'd keep but it really doesn't take a lot of time to do that. It's short. No one wants to read like a long, thing. You know what I mean? So just natural conversation back and forth like you would have with a friend. You know what I mean? You would have with a friend. And then with my 30, 60, 90-day challengers, whichever one you're doing, they get more of me. They do. They just get more of me. Do you know what I mean? So I use Voxer now that they have the ability to walkie-talkie with me. Back in the day, they had the ability to text me, that kind of things. But I had my time that I was answering texts, and I still, to this day, have specific times that are on my calendar that I check in with my challengers or I check in with my coaches. And I know that I'm providing my service, and then they have to do their part. right? They have to do their part. So I'm a big believer in Nordstrom service, okay? I'm a big believer in showing up. I'm a big believer in being available. I'm a big, at certain times, I'm a big believer in speaking life over people. I'm a big believer of giving grace. I'm a big believer of loving people where they're at. I'm a big believer of being understanding that people are going to trip and fall just like our kids when they're learning to walk. So this is Nordstrom service to me. Right? Is giving grace and walking next to people and showing up and loving them right where they're at and speaking life over them no matter what. Because you know what? They're already shaming themselves. I don't need to shame them. You know what I mean? I don't need to shame them. I need to speak life over them. I need to remind them what they're fighting for. I need to ask them what their wins are. I need to get them focused on the positives, right? And I did that every day during lunchtime. And that was my specific time that I did it. And I don't generally have a ton of challengers. I kept myself very balanced, no more than 5. I never did, no more than 5 new challengers at a time. That is how I've built this. That is how I've taught people to do it, right? Because if I can't still be here 7 years later doing the same thing, if I overextend myself with 10, 20, and now my power, 20-minute lunch break turns into a power 2 hour, I'm not going to still be standing 30 days from now. 6 months, I'm going to be burnt out. Does that make sense? I'm not going to be able to give them Nordstrom service. And so Nordstrom service also looks like this. And I'm going to leave you guys with this thought. If you went to Nordstrom's, right? Nordstrom's, if you've ever shopped there, they're really attentive to you when you walk in. Like, they're asking you, what are you shopping for? When I went there, I was like, I'm speaking at an event. They're like, oh, where at? And I was like, in Vegas. They're awesome. In front of how many people? Like, do you want to wear heels? Like, you're going to have to wear a lavalier, so you probably need ball, instead of dangly earrings. They're very involved. Like, who are you speaking to? What is the topic about? Like, do you like to wear pants? Are you thinking that? What's your style? And so I got to tell them I'm more of the holy jean girl, but I like them skinny jeans with some cute boots. So, they were asking all about my style. They weren't just like they didn't assume, boom, right away that they knew, oh, she's speaking, and then they get a vision in their head. It must be all these business owners that are super, suits, and let me put you in a suit, let me put you in this, and that wouldn't have been my style. She was asking me, right? Nordstrom is super tentative to that. But you know what else Nordstrom does? Is they close. They close. So if I would have waited until the day before I was flying to Vegas to speak, and I would have waited till 9:30, and Nordstrom closes at 9, I would have not been able to get a hold of the manager to open the doors for me because, damn it, this is important to me. Let me in your store. They don't put on the side of the store, in case of an emergency, here's the manager's phone number. You know what I mean? And all of us understand that. All of us are like, you're like, duh, no way would I ever expect to be able to get a hold of Nordstrom at 9:30 at night to especially open the doors for me. So why do you leave your doors open all the time? Or how about this? Okay, so some of us, we're willing to answer texts all the time. All the time. Think about when you walk into Nordstrom's, how irritated would you be if this person's working with you, and then someone comes up and they're like, hey, so I have this thing that I'm doing, and then they just pivoted and turned to that person and left you. We do that sometimes. Why? Because we're giving Nordstrom service to our husband and we're talking to him, and then we get a text and we pick up our phone. That's not Nordstrom service, right? You'd be livid if you're working with someone at Nordstrom, they just totally pivoted away from you and started walking with that person, right? Right? So when I think of Nordstrom service, I think of it's being tentative to people, their needs, and seeing if you can help them, but it's also having boundaries. It's also having boundaries, but it's also being consistent. So say I went to Nordstrom's and I went at a time that I was supposed to be open. I went at 11:30 and I went and it never opened. And you're like, well, what time is it? Do you think it'll open today? Do you know what I mean? Do you think they'll show up today? Would you just sit there? And so, you're like, okay, I'll try back tomorrow. Maybe something happened in the store, and you come back 2 days later, and same thing. You know what I mean? It's closed again. You might not try Nordstrom's. You might head on down to Macy's. Do you know what I'm saying? So this Nordstrom service, you have to think about it. We are a business. I opened talking to you guys about that. We are a business. just like Nordstrom's. Like, I know sometimes we don't think about that, but how cool is that? We own a Nordstrom's type business. We get to give Nordstrom service, meaning we get to be tentative to people and serve people and help them feel good in their skin again and support them and encourage them, speak life over them and show up and show them that it's worth their time and talk them through the things that they're struggling in. But we also get to shut down our doors, close our doors, and go home and hang out with our husband and be completely engaged with our kids and our husband and those kind of things. And then we also just need to open up the doors the next day for a certain amount. You get to decide what time your doors open every single day. But they gotta open. They gotta open for your challengers. They gotta open for your coaches. They gotta open, right? And so they don't have to be open all day, but at some point in your schedule, you got to open for your checking in on your challengers, right? The people that have already committed to you. I'm not talking about the people that haven't committed. I'm not saying that we put people on our back and we just try to carry them across the finish line. That's not going to work. Try to put all your challengers or all your coaches on your back, and I'm telling you, at one point in time, you'll start crawling, and before you know it, you'll be out of energy. You won't make it to the finish line. Right? So your job is to kind of jog in place, or maybe you're walking, and to encourage them. You can do this. Come on. This is worth fighting for. I believe in you. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. I love you. Let's go. We're going to the top. You got this. You can do this. You're winning. Look how far you've come. Let's do this. You know what I'm saying? We're going here. Take my hand. We'll walk hand in hand. But I'm not going to put you over top of my shoulder. Right? Because that's almost like stealing someone's win. And that doesn't feel good either. Have you heard about how they've actually showed that kids that get the participation trophy, like as they've talked to these kids, it actually makes them less motivated, and it makes kids feel less valued. Right? And we've been trying to do the opposite to our kids with the little everybody wins like type thing, and kids that's not how we are wired. We need the small win. We need to be, we need that, right? And so if we put them on our shoulder when we cross the finish line, guess what we get to say? I carried your tail across that finish line. They didn't get a win. They didn't get a win. And that win is so important to their belief in themselves, to them seeing themselves as fearfully and wonderfully made again with a calling on their life. They need the win. So we are cheating them out of that by trying to be the source and carrying them on our back, or trying to take offense to it and saying, you know what I mean, and getting all frustrated. We're the encourager. We're just a few steps ahead of them. Come on. We can do this. You got this. Let's do this. Here, you're about to trip over a root. I tripped over that one 2 years ago. Do you see what I'm saying? That's it. That's my job. And I did that for about 20 to 30 minutes every single day during lunchtime. And then I cleaned the dishes, folded the laundry. I put my phone down. My phone, like nowadays we carry our phones with us everywhere. There's even these like cute little things that people put on the back of their phone that their phone can just hang there like an extension of their hand. Like I don't get it. But the phone goes everywhere. Someone texts us and turn the notifications off your phone, you guys. You know what I mean? Like right away. Like we're in it. You know what I mean? And then you feel like you're working all the time. No, Nordstrom doesn't work all the time. Why? Because Nordstrom needs to be open tomorrow. Nordstrom's needs to be able to be open next week, next month, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. Still giving Nordstrom service, still helping people feel amazing when they speak on stage. Do you see what I'm saying? And so you guys, I don't know if that helps, but that's my take on checking in on challengers. How do you motivate challengers? Yeah, they have to show up. But you have to show up too, and after that, we're the encourager, we speak life. They decide when and if they're ready, and that's not on you. As long as you are showing up and setting the example, you're helping them find small wins, you're speaking life over them, and you're creating an environment for them to be encouraged, surrounded, and loved. But if they don't walk through the doors, it's not your fault. That doesn't make you less of a coach. That doesn't make you less meant to be doing this. That just means they're not ready. So still be here when they are ready to open your doors, to open your arms wide open, and to welcome them back on their journey. I hope that helps. I'll talk to you guys later. See ya.